Dear member of the Luxembourg industry ecosystems, dear neighbors from the greater region, thank you for the neighbors to join, and dear solution providers, thank you very much for joining us for this second season of the L-DIH Talks. My name is Arno Lambert. I'm the director of the Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub. Following the great success of the first season of the L-DIH Talk last year, we're now starting a new season. The focus of this season will be how to address a digital transformation in an industry 4.0 vision. And for that, we will have information, inspiration, and hopefully also a lot of engagement from your side. Before we start, let's start with some housekeeping. The session will take place in English for the first part and in French for the second part, where, assuming everybody knows English, I will perform certain English translation into the second part. You can post your question as from now. You have on the right-hand side of your screen a place where it's called questions. So feel free to put your questions as from now, and after that we will take them in the second part of the event. We will also have some polls, and from that you have another tab next to polls, where hopefully you can therefore provide your input on several aspects. For your information, the session is recorded. The benefit of that is for you to have a replay in case you want to, or you will have missed any part, or you want to replay certain of part. In the agenda today, we're going to do several things. I will have the pleasure to introduce you some key digital trends that are affecting the industry 4.0 as a whole. And we're going also to have guest speakers that will actually share their practical experience of their digital transformation. I welcome here our two speakers, Michel Detaille, that most of you will know, and I will introduce her later in the process, and Etienne Jacquet from CB. So Michel has two hats today, of course. The first one that she's well known from the FEDIL, but also the one of Managing Director of Alipa Group. And thank you for Michel and Etienne for joining me today and sharing your experience. And probably let's start from that aspect for how we're going to address the discussion. But before, what I would like to have is to have your view on certain topics. And the first one is, how would you rate the digital maturity of your company? Is it high, meaning you have a dedicated team in charge of a multi-year digitizing program, reporting to the top management? That's important. Medium, we have some initiatives, but not necessarily coordinated under a real program. And low, we do what we have to do, and we do what we have no other choice to do. And from that point of view, if you can go on the poll section, and you will find actually the answer, the question and the answers, and you click what you have, then you could submit your vote. That would be very much appreciated. While you are doing that, I give you the time to answer. So again, directly on the platform, on the right-hand side of the presentation, you should have chat, questions, polls, and people. You would click on the tab polls, and therefore you can submit your vote there. While you are voting, let me just introduce you in a few words what is the Digital Innovation Hub for the ones that are not necessarily familiar. The Luxembourg Digital Innovation Hub is what we call a one-stop shop for digital support for the industry. Meaning what is key is digital, is innovation, and is hubbing. But the key part is hubbing, because digital is actually focus, innovation, it's everywhere. And what we are doing is a hubbing, meaning we help industries in their digital transformation, and we put them in relation with the right or a set of providers that have the skills that can help them. We also put in relation with potential the universities and research program when we get something more specific, and also when there is a possibility to have financial state aid being at national level or European level, we are also operating here. So again, we are working at a national level, helping to digitize the industry, but also we are part of European network. And the Digital Innovation Hub, in its mission, is an association between the Federation, the FEDIL, the Fédération des Industries du Luxembourg, the Chamber of Commerce, the LIST, Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, the University of Luxembourg, the FNR, and last but not least, what the Digital Innovation Hub is hosted at Lux Innovation, the innovation agency. So let's now see where we are on the poll aspect. I can see people still busy, but I can't see the results. So I will probably ask Natalie, that is in the background of the event, to join me and tell me about the results of the first poll. Actually, I can see it now. So we can see overall what the winning is. So going back into the poll number one, we can see the majority of people are on the medium level, and we have still a pretty significant part of the high, and the low is the minority. So I'm very pleased to see how already the audience is engaged on their digital transformation. So now that you have all exercised your skills in the polling section, why don't we go for another one? The poll number two, I will ask Natalie to now put the poll number two, which is, have you ever used a digital maturity assessment tool to assess the digital maturity of your company? And it's very simple, yes or no. And while you're answering those questions, I'm going to cover another topic, which probably is of high interest to you. It's about the ecosystem of the industry in Luxembourg. Here I speak about manufacturing industry. At Lux Innovation, we have a special team specialized in marketplace, and they are actually finalizing a study, and we have some preliminary results. So overall, in Luxembourg, we have 500 manufacturing industries. And interestingly enough, you will see that 77% of them are below 50 employees, and you would go up to 93%. So you have an additional 16% that will be between 50 and 250, and the remaining 7% above 250. So truly the landscape of the industry sector in Luxembourg is truly an SME landscape. And therefore, I'm sure that in the discussion we're going to have today, in which we have two representatives of companies, but also with Michel representing the industry, I'm sure that debate will be also interesting to see, in light of the fact that the majority of the companies in Luxembourg will be below 250 people. So here we see, coming back to the poll, interesting results also. Have you already used or not a digital maturity assessment tool? And we can see that if the majority has not done it, still a growing part, an important part of it has done it. So I think it's very encouraging to see that aside from what your perspective could be of your digital maturity, you're also using an element of tools that can be helping you in that regard. Moving on to, I would say, the core of the debate, and starting to put the floor on where we are. And I want already to thank overall all of you joining today. Let's start by seeing what are the key mega trends that are affecting actually the industry 4.0. Let's see also what it is itself and how it can affect. And those are mega trends, meaning it happens. Whatever you do or not, it happens. and how would you incorporate that in your thinking? The starting point is to reset the scene on Industry 4.0, even if that was already pretty well covered in the first season of the Digital last year. But to summarize it, the evolution of the industry aspect is digital, smart, and connected. That's what means Industry 4.0. Now, interestingly, in the chart from Strategy End from PwC, you see that it has started in 2015, and you see the different subset of that. But it's actually a starting point or the base towards something very and even more interesting, which is the digital ecosystem, where actually from the smart, the digital and connected, it's about an element of virtualization, co-creation, not only from a process and from a product point of view, but also with the data. And those are the whole point is there is clearly, they are definitely into agility of the supply chain, but of the industry in itself. So a clear evolution, we can see definitely that the cycles are getting shorter, and we're probably closer to 2030 than we are than to 2015. So how do we take that into consideration? What is affecting overall the world that will affect Industry 4.0 and that we should take into consideration? The first thing I want to share with you is an impressive work of an interesting work from DHL Research Center, which is the DHL Technology Radar. It is more focused on the logistic industry, but clearly a lot of it applies to the manufacturing aspect and the supply chain, and therefore the role you clearly play in that sequence. How does it read that? You have circles, and the first big element is relevant below 5 years. The next one relevant between 5 and 10 years. And then you see the highest impact will be more at the top, vertical. The lower impact will be bottom right. And it's divided into two aspects. On the right-hand side, technology trends. On the left-hand side, social and business trends. I will not spend too much time on the social and business trends, even if it's really interesting, because that applies more to the logistic industry focus. The right-hand side of the technology trends is cross-industry and definitely applies in itself to the manufacturing industry. And we can see here, closest to the kernel of the chart, big data and analytics. We recognize that data today is key. So what does it bring? And this is clearly transformational in any digital transformation. The IoT, Internet of Things, those devices that connect to the supply chain, connected to the production chain, directly or indirectly, fixed or mobile. Robotic and automation, that is clearly at the heart of the industry transformation, digital transformation. Artificial intelligence is another element that is key. Cloud and API, you will hear it a lot. The cloud is whether it's on-premise or in the cloud. APIs is how you interchange. Next generation wireless, including the 5G discussion. And then you can see augmented and virtual reality. You see also blockchain there, a bit further on the horizon. Then you see a lot of other areas, but I will not focus too much on the 5 to 10 years at this stage. The key point is that those technologies are moving at a pace that is probably not driven by this industry, but where this industry is benefiting. And that's the key message here, is to ensure that you keep a watch on those trends, and you have multiple of those radars. This one is one example, because it's probably the closest of the one that will affect the industry itself. And please incorporate that into your own digital transformation. The second element, aside from the evolution of technology, is definitely the fact that the business to consumer, the B2C, and the consumer to consumer digital interaction is actually nowadays driving the B2B, the business to business interaction. What do I mean here? It sets the bar of the interaction. You can see here in 2019 what happens in 1 internet minute. That is, and I will not go through the detail of that, but it's clearly about a lot of interaction. It's not about digital, it's not about mobile, it's about simplicity. What I mean here is, and I have not taken the numbers of 2020 because of the specific aspect of course, the pandemic aspect we have been through, which has even further raised the bar and the usage of the digital on the B2C aspect. Meaning, the fact that any of the people or a lot of people on this planet are using internet for this type of usage, their experience of digital is driven by the experience of using those tools that you can see here. It's about simplicity, it's about customer orientation, it's about personalization, it's about agility, it's about transparency, it's about traceability, it's about connected, an ecosystem. And we can see now that, like you could have ordered a book in one of those multiple online platforms, you expect it's simple, it's graphic, you go through the platform, you have cross opportunities of looking at this one has also bought this one, if you have bought this one, why don't you look at this one? All those simplicity and ease of flow, and all that technology behind also, but the experience of the customer, you as an individual customer on the B2C has an experience of that matter. Naturally, you are starting to expect the same in a business to business. So if you buy something from your supplier, and that's a trend that is accelerating. And I would really encourage everybody to really put that customer experience at the heart of your digital transformation, understanding that is driven by the consumer. That's where it sets the bar. The next element is, let's look on the other side, which means we discuss about the customer and the customer experience. What about the suppliers? Well, probably we need to look at the suppliers from a very different aspect nowadays. IBM had made a study not long time ago focusing on suppliers and companies, and actually came with this impressive results that up to 65% of the value of a company, products and services is derived from its suppliers. And I believe 2020 has put a whole different spotlight on that again. Which means that your own value depends intrinsically a lot from the one that you provide with your suppliers. And supply chain collaboration, because you are part of a chain, even if you are production and manufacturing, you are part of a whole supply chain. Collaboration provides a lot of benefit, not only in cost reduction, not only on the carbon footprint, on forecast, etc., but the utmost part is the level of customer satisfaction. And these days, it's really about you as a company. You cannot look at the digital transformation only as an isolation, but with you're part of the whole supply chain, from your suppliers and next customer experience, as well as your partner that are true value creation. Which brings me to the fact of the digital landscape of industries is usually, and when I meet companies, most of the companies have already addressed a lot or are addressing what I would call the production aspect and the floor, with a lot of initiatives. That's where the initiative of digitalization starts. That's where normally it's, I won't say the comfort zone, but it's a primary focus of the industry is to produce, and therefore it's normal that the key focus is there. And while it is still required and still needed, there needs to be more attention to be done on the customer management and the customer experience driven by the B2C experience, and on the suppliers for the reason I mentioned earlier on about the value creation. Your value creation relies a lot on one of your suppliers. And of course, you have the support functions. And the digitalization landscape for Industry 4.0, the point here is, it is about the entire aspect. And probably the biggest value is, I won't say not from the production side because it is key, but at the same time it's being addressed already. But the best untapped value is probably coming from the approach to your customer, to your supplier, and your support function in your digital transformation. So please keep that in mind. And in the whole season of this year on the L-DIH Talks, we're going to cover, and the customer experience, that will be the next one, the supplier management, the support functions, and more. An element that we need also to recognize is the combination of the Internet of Things, the IoT, meaning any device that can measure, that can generate, transmit data. Connected to the existing set of connectivity would have wired connectivity, wireless connectivity, and the future 5G, brings what we at the end of the black box. It brings a set of data points across the production, manufacturing, but also logistics chain, so that in the end you have connected supply chain, you have connected product, and you have connected customers. It's about connectivity. The combination of technology availability, price points, brings in the end this famous Industry 4.0, which is about digital, smart, and connected, into a very different level, which is not only at the product level, but also at the whole supply chain level. Where is the biggest impact? And this is a study from A.T. Kearney, and I'm not going to cover all of it. But the biggest impact in Industry 4.0 is definitely on the demand forecasting and planning, and that again links back to your customer. In inventory planning and management, in network routing and optimization, in freight document handling and archiving. And you see there a lot of focuses and areas, and hopefully, and that's why we have recorded, and you can go more into the detail, a whole set of areas where you have not only the value creation, but the example of the chain transformation. But this is all good. But frankly, I will want to highlight the fact that the biggest impact of 4.0 and any digital transformation is on the customer experience. It is about being able to provide personalized services to your customer. That the customer can have customization element in their own needs, is the agility in which you interact into the supply chain for your customer, is the transparency you're able to bring for yourself, but also for your customer and your suppliers. And the traceability, not only the one imposed by regulations, but also the one that actually you want to ensure from a security, safety, quality aspect. So in summary, before we reach out to our panelists and hearing their real experience, the conclusion is that it's really the user experience from the B2C that is driving the B2B, the standards of the B2B. And that's why, please take that into consideration in your digital transformation. Digitization and connectivity are the two elements of harnessing the value of 4.0. So it's both. It's digitizing and being connected. So keep both in mind. It's not about only your own digital transformation internal to your company. And it's only the beginning of a new adventure where it's about to be about ecosystems, much more tighter ecosystems. So your links and the way you work will be much tighter with your customers and your providers. Last but not least, start any of your digitalization program with your end customer in mind. There needs to be a benefit there, because that's where the biggest value creation is. And here is what I would say the formal part, in the sense that it's about the informal. So we are leaving the world of knowledge. I hope with these few words and slides you have increased your own knowledge about the topic, but nothing beats experience and experience sharing. And this is why I'm going to invite our two guest speakers to join. We're going to first to have, I just want to introduce both of them more in detail before we get into what I would say the detail of the interaction. Ladies first, even if Etienne is going to start, but ladies first, I'm going to introduce first Michel de Taille. Now, probably the Luxembourg ecosystem knows her pretty well. Of course, graduate in political science from University Catholique de Louvain in Belgium, and she started her career on the politic aspects, becoming, among other things, the mayor of Vaux-sur-Sur, which is not far away. What is probably more of our interest is that she turned into, I would say, the business side of the matter in 98 by taking the commercial direction of Accor Service Benelux. In 96, she took over a company called No Name Boxes, which she still manages today, and she developed the whole AIPA group, a set of SMEs active in the field of packaging, industrial logistics, and handling. So that is the first of many hats of Michelle. She also holds several administrator mandates, and in April 2019, she became the first woman, non-Luxembourgish, I must say, thank you for the opening of that, elected to the presidency of the Fédération des Industries de Luxembourg. And this is, so she has definitely, not only she will be speaking today from her experience from a managing director point of view, but also, of course, addressing elements from the Federation. And last but not least, I would still note that she recently also joined the board of the Banque Centrale de Luxembourg, providing again a lot of expertise there. And thank you for Michel for joining us, and we'll be hearing from you in a moment. Next to Michel, we have Etienne Jacquet. Thank you, Etienne, for joining us today. Look, Etienne is a Luxembourgish national and has started he's a mechanical engineer from the RWTH. I'm sorry, I don't remember the whole explanation. Surely an high-end engineering school from Hagen. He has spent 26 years at Delphi and engineering responsible for powertrain components. So really a person that knows his stuff. And since 2018, he has joined SEBI International, responsible for R&D at the group level. So I believe with that, we have the best candidates to really provide us two very different experiences. And that's what I've asked them to do. Nothing is more important than being inspired by experience of others so that you can see what is the best from your side and apply it to your level. So Etienne, without further ado, floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay, good. So Etienne Jacquet, I'm responsible for R&D at SEBI Group. So first of all, who is SEBI? SEBI is headquartered in Steinze, Luxembourg, but it's a global company. You see the product portfolio here. So there is a very large portfolio of mechatronic components, mainly for the automotive industry. There is also some household and industrial applications, but we manufacture and sell these products. So we are on the B2B side of the business. SEBI exists since 2011. Before that, it was a conglomerate of about 5 different companies. So besides digitalization, we also go through integration as a group, and I'll come back to that in a moment. The challenge, you can see it on this picture here. We sold about 210 million pieces in 1 year. So that's about 1 million per day, per working day almost, of 5,000 different part numbers. And the number of customers is not mentioned here, but it's about the same number of customers, 5,000 to manage. So it's almost a miracle that we can do that without an integrated system today. But indeed, it does work, but it certainly has issues to be resolved, and that's why we go through digitalization right now. A little anecdote here, of course, each of these parts is the cheapest offer, and that is the rule in the automotive industry. What is our challenge today? It is really the scope or the design space that we live in is becoming smaller and smaller. As you could see, it's mass production, so we have to make a high number of parts, and of course you want to standardize if you do that. But on the other side, the customer wants innovation. He wants new designs more often. So we get more and more speed coming up here in the design phase. and we are pressed both in space and in time for the design space we have. So we have to make more products faster in the development and also in the manufacturing side of things. So that is the challenge. And how do you do that if you work on manual systems or if you work with, let's say, standard processes? In 2011 or shortly after that, we came up with a strategy called One CEBI. Initially, this was intended to be the integration of the company as one company, so we changed the logo and everything. But then you see all these tools that I mentioned on the slide here, they are all digital. So it's almost by coincidence that when you want to integrate a complex organization and put them on a common ground, then all the things you have to do have a digital element to them, or they are digital tools. The level of integration is different. So for example, the CRM, customer relationship management tool, is already integrated and functional. Other tools like Industry 4.0 or PLM and QMS are in the middle of it. So we are about 20-30% down the journey of digitalization. Of course, you can never finish it completely, but in the poll, I would say we have started and we are ongoing, but we are far from being at the, let's say, target level. This is a little use case. I went to the plant. I took some pictures last week. And on the left side, it's the production line of a little heater that you see on the bottom without digitalization. So this is an example of Industry 3.0. It's an injection machine, the green part, and then it's a robot assembling the part on the right. And when you stand in front of the machine for 1 hour, then after 1 hour, you have about 200 parts in these blue boxes that are coming out of the machine. So it's fully automatic, but it's not digitalized. On the right side, it's the same machine, but digitalized. And as you can see, there is really no difference. You still stand in front of it, and after 1 hour, you still have 200 parts in the boxes. So you do not produce more when you digitalized. So why digitalize? And the real reason here is if you go back to the left side, and this is a little heater. So 1 year later, the customer calls you and he says, I had a fire on the car. And I want you to tell me which of these parts are probably going to cause more fires, because then I have to recall the cars and I have to replace these parts. If you're not digitalized, all you can do is you go to the line, you talk to the operator, and you ask him if he remembers what happened a year ago and how many bad parts he might have produced. And you probably end up with, let's say, very random information, and you have to tell your customer that you don't know, and that will be a very costly recall, and probably you close your company after that. On the right side, you see this red circle. You know the history of each of these parts, upstream the process and downstream the process. So you know, for example, what pressure or what temperature this part has seen, or if it has been, if there has been an issue during the assembly. So now you can tell the customer that this car in China and this car in Luxembourg and this car in Italy may have a defective part. So the recall is limited to maybe 3 or 5 cars. And it's a much better situation, of course. Actually, if you're digitalized, you will probably not even let these parts go out. So you retain them and you fix the problem right the time you produce it. So this is only one use case, in this case about traceability, that allows you to be, let's say, much more effective in understanding what you produce, and also reactive in fixing issues before it's way too late to do anything about it. So the benefits of digitalization are not to produce more, but they are everything else that you can think about that makes it easier for you to understand what you produce, or also what you design, what you sell, how your service works. So you have real-time data, you have visibility, you have efficient processes, you are compliant with customer expectations, and in some cases also regulations. I'm also listing here the partners that we have engaged so far. On the left side, this is our Industry 4.0 project, so that looks at the manufacturing side of things, together with data things and the S&T, and coming together with the help of Lux Innovation in this case. That's one big project. Then we use Salesforce for the CRM. This is already in production and working. And then we have another large project, very large project with Siemens, where we've engaged a product lifecycle management system and a quality management system across the corporation, so worldwide. And actually, those two systems will be integrated, meaning that we will use the same database, the same documents between the product lifecycle management and the quality management system. And this is sort of unique. Because even Siemens have not come up with an integrated system. So we are the pioneers in some way in integrating the two. We gave ourselves about 5 years for the whole thing. So this is a long-term project. And also, we have engaged a Luxembourgish company, Mindforest, here to help us with the change, because buying a piece of software and installing it is one thing, but then going through the change across the company is a completely other dimension of the challenge. And I will speak about that in the next slide. So these are the points of attention that go beyond just the digital part of it. You have to think about upskilling your people. You have to think about the user experience, change management, cultural side of the organization. Of course, on the technology side, it's the cybersecurity and the IT infrastructure that you need to put in place. And these are much longer term things than actually the digitalization itself. You can install the software over a weekend, but you can change a culture in multiple years only. So this is a real point of attention that I would like to share. It's not a good idea to do digitalization when you're in a rush and you have to do something quick, because what you will get is the software, but you will not get the adoption, you will not get the efficiency out of it that you expect. So that is very important. Okay, and this concludes my presentation. This guy here, Edward Deming, already spoke about data back in 1978. So there were not many computers around. And again, this means that the digitalization or the computers are only the tool we use today, but the data is what is important and what we do out of the data. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Etienne, for sharing your experience. I think we're going to have the floor later on for the panel discussion and the question also. But I think interesting aspect is, okay, your statement about we are not digitizing to produce more, but it's for other reasons, traceability being one of them. At this stage, and before I leave the floor to Michel, I want to remind you that you can put questions on the question tab that you have as part of the platform. Sorry, and we'll be happy to take that after the starting of the presentation from Michel, when we get into the more interactive part. Interactive part, you are part of the interaction. So please feel free to put your questions into the question tab there. At this stage, I'm going to switch to French. Me voilà donc en français. And the reason being, simply we wanted to do simultaneous translation for different reasons. It doesn't happen for other reasons. I'll be hopefully doing that correctly from time to time. Michel, bienvenue. On a entendu une expérience et maintenant, je crois que l'audience est très intéressée aussi d'avoir votre point de vue, d'un point de vue déjà chef d'entreprise et probablement aussi d'autres dimensions venant plutôt de la fédération.
Merci Arnaud, merci pour l'invitation. Je voudrais dire qu'en tant que présidente de la FEDIL, je suis très heureuse d'être parmi vous parce que la digitalisation est une priorité pour la Fédération des entreprises. Il faut savoir que c'est la FEDIL qui est à l'origine du Digital Innovation Hub, Ce projet ensuite a été géré par Lux Innovation parce que la structure de Lux Innovation est parfaitement adaptée pour faire vivre et grandir un outil aussi intéressant que le DIH. Et je suis très heureuse qu'Arnaud ait rejoint l'équipe en tant que directeur du DIH. La FEDIL a fait de la digitalisation une de ses 3 priorités à côté des talents et de la transition énergétique. À la FEDIL, on considère la digitalisation comme un sujet transversal qui concerne toutes les entreprises, quelle que soit leur taille et quel que soit leur secteur d'activité. Nous sommes très, très impliqués sur le sujet de la digitalisation. Un groupe d'administrateurs se réunit très régulièrement pour discuter de ces sujets. Des groupes de travail ad hoc se réunissent aussi sur différentes questions. Étienne a parlé tout à l'heure de cybersécurité. Je vous informe, pour ceux qui ne le sauraient pas, qu'il y a sur le site de la FEDIL un outil en ligne qui permet aux entreprises d'évaluer la qualité de leur cybersécurité. C'est un outil qui est bien fait et très utile. Il y a quelques jours, la FEDIL a organisé les European Business Day et plus de 800 personnes nous ont rejoints en digital, je le précise, et ces journées ont été consacrées pour l'essentiel à la digitalisation de l'économie. Il y a eu là des témoignages très intéressants d'entreprises qui vraiment ont expliqué ce qu'elles faisaient. Je vous conseille aussi, si le sujet vous intéresse, de revoir, puisque c'est évidemment disponible sur le web, de revoir tout ou partie de ces 2 journées. La FEDIL organise aussi pour ses membres des groupes d'échange de bonnes pratiques sur le sujet parce que, on le sait tous, la théorie c'est bien, l'académique nous aide dans ce type de projet, mais rien ne vaut les expériences partagées. Et n'oublions pas un sujet qui n'apparaît peut-être pas immédiatement aux gens de terrain que nous sommes pour la plupart, c'est que le niveau législatif est très important en ce qui concerne aussi la digitalisation. La plupart des nouvelles réglementations se prennent au niveau européen et la FEDIL est très active auprès de la Commission européenne en termes de lobbying pour toutes les questions qui sont liées à la digitalisation. On le fait soit directement, soit via Business Europe, qui est la Fédération européenne des entreprises. Et il est important qu'on soit au plus près des décisions qui sont prises pour que nos préoccupations soient prises en compte. Ça, c'était pour la partie FEDIL. Arnaud l'a dit, je suis venue aussi avec un autre chapeau. Je suis venue avec la casquette d'administrateur délégué du groupe ALIPA. Et là, je voudrais juste vous apporter le témoignage du long chemin que représente l'introduction de la numérisation dans une petite entreprise. Je précise que moi, je pense, quand je réponds à la question qui vous a été posée, où en êtes-vous, je pense toujours qu'on est au milieu et quand on se fait ausculter, entre guillemets, par des consultants extérieurs, soit dans le cadre d'études menées par le gouvernement ou même par l'Europe, ils nous disent qu'on est plutôt à un haut niveau. Mais c'est un sujet où on peut évidemment toujours s'améliorer. Tout le monde ne connaît pas l'IPA parce que nous, même si nous sommes installés ici dans le pays depuis longtemps, nous sommes situés à Vils, nous avons en fait très peu de clients dans le pays. Donc, juste un petit mot pour dire ce que nous faisons. Nous sommes un petit groupe d'entreprises actives dans le domaine du levage et de l'emballage industriel. Nous produisons à Vils des caisses pliantes en contreplaqué et des accessoires de levage, notamment des anneaux de levage articulés qui sont entre autres utilisés dans l'industrie de l'injection plastique. Ce sont des produits de niche que nous vendons principalement en Europe, mais aussi dans le monde entier. Nous employons à peu près 160 personnes et notre chiffre d'affaires est d'environ 27 millions d'euros. C'est en fait en 2017 que nous avons appelé dans notre groupe l'année de la digitalisation. Pourquoi ? Parce que c'était bien, ça fait quand même quelques années. Eh bien, je crois que c'est parce que j'ai toujours détesté payer cher des femmes et des hommes intelligents pour faire des choses stupides. Et lorsqu'on a entamé le processus de numérisation, j'ai vite compris que les tâches intelligentes pouvaient aussi être confiées à des machines et que nous devions concentrer les hommes et les femmes sur ce que les ordinateurs ne peuvent pas encore faire, construire et entretenir des relations humaines et développer l'esprit critique, par exemple. vous l'aurez compris, en tant que chef d'entreprise, j'ai initié la digitalisation dans notre groupe. C'est certainement l'une des clés du succès que le patron s'implique dans ce long processus. Dans notre entreprise, il y avait déjà une volonté de certains collaborateurs d'aller dans cette direction, mais c'est mon soutien qui a été déterminant pour mobiliser l'ensemble du personnel, car d'emblée, tout le monde n'est pas intéressé par ce qui reste encore quand même souvent une nouveauté. Donc, je pense vraiment que la direction doit donner l'impulsion et montrer que ce sujet est important pour l'entreprise. En 2017, j'avais demandé à chacun de nos collaborateurs de partager ses idées sur la digitalisation. Chacun s'est senti plus ou moins impliqué dans le processus qu'on a initié, mais nous avons recueilli plus de 100 idées. Il y avait des suggestions pour chaque département de l'entreprise. Et nous avons eu un peu de mal à démarrer parce qu'en fait, il fallait prioriser. Nous avons décidé de commencer par des tâches faciles à mettre en place et des tâches qui étaient très, très visibles pour mobiliser encore plus le personnel. Si je me souviens bien, la première chose qu'on a dû installer, c'est une tablette à l'entrée de notre usine pour que les visiteurs puissent s'enregistrer sur un iPad au lieu de s'inscrire dans un livre qui souvent est sale, intrusif et très facile à perdre. Alors, il faut savoir, parce que si vous allez vous demander, mais pourquoi elle voulait absolument connaître les gens qui viennent chez elle, il faut savoir que notre entreprise est certifiée AEO et donc nous devons conserver les noms des visiteurs pendant un certain temps pour être sûr de pouvoir toujours fournir à la douane les gens qui ont franchi l'enceinte de notre lieu de production. Une des difficultés qu'on a rapidement rencontrées, c'était de structurer notre démarche. On a donc été très heureux quand le programme Fit for Digital a été mis en place par le gouvernement, le ministère de l'économie et avec Lux Innovation, et on est entré très vite en 2018 dans ce programme. On a travaillé avec un consultant qui s'appelle Résultance, qui nous a aidé à structurer notre approche, à établir nos priorités. Et ce consultant nous a aussi aidé à budgéter notre approche. Globalement, une des difficultés qu'on rencontre quand on est une petite PME avec un service informatique très très peu développé, c'est de trouver des logiciels adaptés à nos besoins à un coût abordable et évidemment avec un retour sur investissement intéressant. C'est aussi très difficile de trouver des fournisseurs fiables qui comprennent l'esprit d'une petite entreprise et qui concernent que le but est de gagner de l'argent et pas de réaliser une prouesse technologique. On a en fait peu de moyens pour vérifier que ce que les informaticiens ou les consultants qui veulent implémenter de la numérisation dans une entreprise nous disent des choses qui sont vraies et qui vont marcher. Je dis toujours que si je fournis une caisse qui n'est pas solide, voilà, c'est pas très compliqué à s'en rendre compte, il suffit de la jeter par terre et on verra si elle résiste ou pas. C'est beaucoup plus compliqué quand il s'agit de digitalisation. Alors, dans notre démarche, on n'a pas seulement pensé à robotiser ou automatiser nos ateliers, mais on a aussi surtout pensé à améliorer notre relation avec nos clients et à améliorer notre suivi commercial. Et ça nous a obligés à repenser un peu notre organisation parce que j'ai coutume de dire que si on remplace une feuille de papier par une tablette sur le lieu de travail, ça ne va pas forcément augmenter la productivité et la différence sera en fait uniquement le coût de la tablette. Un autre élément est aussi important, Étienne en a parlé, il faut que le personnel s'approprie cette démarche et les nouveaux outils. Or, avec les nombreuses absences de nos collaborateurs pour des congés de maternité, des congés de paternité, des temps partiels, toutes ces absences nécessitent des efforts de formation importants et le re-onboarding, comme on dit maintenant, est d'autant plus important que les fonctions sont numérisé parce que les logiciels ont évolué, parce que les gens ont eu le temps d'oublier comment on l'utilisait. C'est aussi une des raisons de choisir quand on est dans une entreprise dont l'informatique n'est pas le métier, c'est aussi une des raisons de choisir un logiciel convivial. Si on veut aussi utiliser toutes les fonctions utiles d'un logiciel, ça nécessite une formation continue. Et on a mis en place chez nous des personnes qui sont un peu des tuteurs, des gens qui connaissent particulièrement bien un certain logiciel et qui vont l'expliquer à leurs collègues. c'est la meilleure façon qu'on a trouvée pour faire adhérer les gens et pour l'utilisation efficace de tous ces softwares. Une des leçons qu'on a tirées aussi, c'est que de petites applications indépendantes peuvent parfois être très intéressantes. Quelqu'un, par exemple, dans notre personnel, a trouvé une société qui s'appelle Opti Transport et qui nous a permis de réduire nos coûts de transport annuels de 12%, ce qui représente quand même 100 000 € par an. Ça n'est pas négligeable. Bon, tout le monde le sait, le travail à distance a accéléré la numérisation des différentes tâches, mais la numérisation, c'est un long chemin. Ce n'est pas un objectif en soi, je le répète, c'est juste un moyen d'améliorer la rentabilité de notre entreprise. Et ça, il faut le garder à l'esprit, et c'est souvent difficile, surtout lorsqu'on est face à des informaticiens talentueux, passionnés par leur métier, qui veulent vous vendre la solution la plus sophistiquée. Et là, il faut en revenir au bon sens qui est souvent celui qui existe dans les PME. Et dans ce cas-là, nous reprenons notre devise en disant « Ok, monsieur, aussi bon que nécessaire, mais pas aussi parfait que possible ». Voilà, je vous remercie de m'avoir écouté, puis je suis bien entendu à disposition pour répondre ou pour échanger avec vous. Je suis sûre que je vais apprendre énormément de choses encore aujourd'hui.
Un grand merci Michel. Juste, je vais peut-être d'abord faire un petit sommaire de quelques points saillants en anglais pour notre audience potentiellement plus anglophone. Just a quick summary from this very rich, I would say, feedback. So I will not be able to go over everything, but you will be able to find it in the replay when you can watch the replay where we put probably a translation there. But the key point is, first of all, from a FEDIL point of view, digitalization is a key focus, and there are many initiatives there. Please refer to the site there. And from an ALIPA group point of view, I think key people are involve the people from the ideas on the digitalization up to the implementation, and including invest in their training skills. Always keep a business focus. It's not about technology for the technology. And in how you approach the matter, think, yes, on big solution, but also think about value creation of smaller solution can actually derive a big value. And there is much more that Michel shared with us, but in view of the time, I want to make sure we have time also to arrange the interaction. Merci beaucoup Michel. Et ici maintenant, je crois que pour lancer un peu justement l'interaction à trois, un des éléments qu'on a vu dans la présentation que j'ai faite aussi, c'est l'impact client et fournisseur. Et ici, dans votre projet de digitalisation, vos clients et vos fournisseurs, est-ce que ce sont des accélérateurs ou des freins dans votre processus de digitalisation? Et est-ce que vous avez un exemple par rapport à ça?
La question est pour moi?
La question est pour tous les deux, mais Michel, je t'en prie.
Alors, je dirais parfois les deux. Je vais donner un exemple où les clients ont été un frein. J'étais très contente d'avoir lancé, porté un module e-commande pour nos clients, je précise bien pour nos clients, pas pour nos prospects, pour nos caisses no-nail. Et en fait, personne n'a voulu utiliser ce module qui était bien pensé techniquement. Et alors, j'ai dit aux commerciaux, vous êtes mauvais, vous n'êtes pas capable de vendre ça. Bref, finalement, on a eu 3 clients. Et quand je dis pourquoi on a 3 clients, les commerciaux très gênés m'ont dit, en fait, c'est parce qu'on est allé les voir en disant, écoutez, elle n'arrête pas de nous casser les pieds. Donc, s'il vous plaît, on s'entend bien, commandez. Alors, évidemment, pourquoi les gens ne commandaient pas? C'est ça qui est intéressant. Parce qu'on a des grands groupes comme clients. Ils disaient, OK, on veut bien de votre e-module, à condition qu'il s'adapte à notre logiciel à nous, sinon on doit faire de la ressaisie et tout. Et là, les grands logiciels bien connus sont quand même assez nombreux, contrairement à ce qu'on pourrait croire. Et du coup, si on devait développer une plateforme pour être compatible avec chacun de nos clients les plus importants, ça nous coûtait trop cher. Donc, on a rangé, à mon grand désespoir, ce e-module. Voilà un exemple où on a clairement été freiné. Or, on avait demandé d'abord aux clients si ça les intéressait, et ils répondaient tous oui, évidemment, parce que ça fait bien et c'est moderne. Mais dès qu'on arrive dans le concret, ils n'en voulaient plus.
Merci. Étienne, de votre côté, votre expérience?
Alors, clairement, les clients le demandent, ça c'est clair, mais c'est souvent dans leur propre intérêt, c'est-à-dire Je parlais de la traçabilité avant, où le client il souhaite bien savoir tout sur les produits qu'il achète, ce qui se comprend un peu, mais ils veulent même de la visibilité au-delà, c'est-à-dire voir nos process internes, voir nos stocks et des choses comme ça, ce qui est souvent aussi contre-productif parce qu'à ce moment-là, si 2 ou 3 clients se battent sur les mêmes capacités, qu'est-ce qu'on fait? Donc, on doit vraiment gérer un peu disons, l'interaction digitale avec les clients. L'aspect sécurité d'information devient aussi de plus en plus conflictuel à ce moment-là. Donc, ils sont clairement demandeurs, mais souvent, ils imposent leur système ou leur façon de faire qui n'est pas compatible avec une digitalisation dans l'intérêt de la société.
Un grand merci. Donc, clairement, un équilibre à trouver. Avant de passer à l'interaction suivante, je voudrais vous remettre l'audience sur la prochaine enquête. Donc, back to the polls, my dear audience, if you don't mind, for last question before we get some final closing words and take the next questions. So the question is, from your side, and we have already heard some experience, but what is the biggest challenge you are facing regarding digitalization in your company? Is it the fact that you don't have the financial means? Is it the fact that you have resistance among the staff? Is it the fact that you don't have a business case to support investment? Is it the fact that, well, you have different others, but now the questions are moving on. So please go into the polls and please share your thoughts about what is actually your biggest challenge. And therefore, we can also take that back into the audience. La question peut-être que je voulais vous poser aussi ensemble, c'est s'il y avait quelque chose à refaire depuis le départ, est-ce que vous auriez démarré différemment? Maintenant, vous avez le recul. Étienne, vous voulez démarrer?
La réponse est oui, je crois. Je l'avais déjà dit, l'aspect changement de culture est très important. En fait, donc on a introduit un système au niveau des ventes et c'est presque paradoxe, mais je dirais que les gens qui étaient le plus demandeurs d'avoir un système au début, c'est les mêmes gens qui étaient après pas trop convaincus du système non plus. Et ça, c'est pas parce que ces gens, ils ont demandé un système, mais ces gens, ils ont demandé un changement culturel. C'est-à-dire, on a constaté que bon, on était peut-être trop long à répondre ou la qualité des réponses n'était pas suffisante, les boucles trop ou disons les procédures trop lentes. Un système ne change pas les procédures. Un système vous donne une plateforme, mais il faut ensuite voir qu'est-ce qu'on fait avec. Donc, ce changement-là, il est très important à comprendre. Et c'est pour ça que j'ai dit aussi, il faut surtout pas vite aller chercher un système, l'installer et puis voilà, ça y est, je suis digitalisé parce que ça ne marchera pas. Il y a toujours le changement culturel à regarder, je dirais presque en priorité avant de savoir qu'est-ce qu'on veut. Et puis la deuxième chose, je crois que Michel l'a évoqué, il y a des gros outils onéreux, mais il y a aussi des petites solutions qui peuvent être intéressantes. Il faut vraiment regarder les deux.
Merci. Michel, de votre côté?
Oui, je changerais deux choses. D'abord, pour chaque projet, je mettrais vraiment en interne un chef de projet très fort, qui à la fois peut résister à son fournisseur et pour résister aussi aux demandes en interne qui arrivent dans tous les sens et qui ne sont pas nécessairement justifiées. Et l'autre point, et on est en train de l'expérimenter, on est trop petit pour avoir quelqu'un qui peut en interne avoir des compétences informatiques, puisque l'informatique aujourd'hui c'est devenu tellement large. Donc on cherche à se faire aider par un consultant externe qui connaît les PME, qui ne vend rien, parce qu'on veut quelqu'un d'indépendant. On cherche un peu, j'espère qu'on a trouvé, on est en train d'essayer en tout cas, quelqu'un qui, quand on construit une maison, assume le rôle d'architecte. Donc c'est lui qui peut comprendre vos souhaits, qui qui comprend bien le type de maison que vous voulez, qui connaît aussi plus ou moins le marché, qui est capable de connaître les bons acteurs et éventuellement de les trier, de les choisir, de vous aider dans vos choix en disant c'est bien si vous voulez faire ça, mais voilà les conséquences techniques ou financières que ça va avoir. Et c'est pas si facile à trouver parce que la plupart des gens sur le marché vendent des solutions, donc ils ne sont pas du tout neutres par rapport à ce qui va être implanté chez vous. Donc voilà les deux choses qu'on voudrait, les deux choses principales qu'on changerait, qu'on est en train de changer déjà.
Parfait. Un grand merci. And time is running, unfortunately, with this very interesting and rich, I would say, experience. Just going back to the poll before we close the session, I think the reason, the biggest challenge is still an element of financial element that still raised the top. So, of course, there are certain possibilities if you have a real project to have certain help, including from a national and European level. But for that, you first need to have a project and innovation side. You can always reach out to Lux Innovation and to the Digital Innovation Hub should you have such a project where you want to have some advice how to potentially have further funding. But we can see it's a mix of things. And that will give us probably even more, I would say, more further input to the next sessions of the DH. So on the closing words here, and unfortunately time flies. I mean, when you're in good company and you're talking about practical experience, it's always very nourished, and I want to thank you both, Michel and Etienne, for having shared your practical experience and your tips and tricks and your real experience from your digital transformation from a medium-sized company that is very much doing also specialized, tailor-made, I would say, products to a larger company doing large volume into a very active sector. So I think at this stage, I want to thank you all. The next session will take place on the 29th of April, and we're going to focus on actually the end user experience, so the customer experience as part of digital transformation. And I hope that you will be able to join us for the next session. Thank you all for your participation, and I wish you a good lunch for most of you, and a nice day, and hopefully we find all us back for the next iteration on the 29th of April. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup. Bonne journée.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.